Okay, so let's go into a panel um, discussion. And we are joined by Brother Swapnil and Robin. I'll start with if they can introduce themselves one by one, um, who you are and what you are, where are you working, a little bit about yourself. Thank you.
Okay, you want to go?
Yeah, Brother Swapnil, you can go ahead.
Okay, let me go first. Hi, my name is Swapnil Dete. I moved to Gurgaon sorry, in 2012 only for the purpose of work. I had no plans of doing anything else, and that too because of certain conditions in my previous job. So the whole objective of moving into Gurgaon was for work. I have total 25 years of experience now. I worked in customer service, sales and marketing, business development, application engineering. I'm basically an electrical engineer, but I've done a lot many other things than just electrical engineering. And yeah, currently I'm working in a private company here in Gurgaon in strategy and business development. I've seen many ups and downs in career. I have messed up badly, and God has been gracious. And yeah, I've seen His goodness and faithfulness in my entire career. Yeah, currently I'm based in Gurgaon, and I have wife, one daughter, one son.
Thank you.
Well said, Swapnil. So I'll introduce myself. I've been in Gurgaon since 2004. I've been with DBF since then, been here for last 17 years, and I've been working since I was 21. And so I've been working for about 27 years, worked in different parts of the country in different roles. And currently I head the fertilizer business of an American company for India. And, interesting perspective. As you were talking about work, there is so much that we had to make the decisions and calls while we went through these COVID times. So it has impacted positively and challenging ways as well. And here we are with my family, my wife and two daughters. One of them is here with us studying, the other one is studying outside. So that's in brief about us.
Thank you, Brother Swapnil and Robin. Yeah, as I said, both of them are, in my little experience in Gurgaon, they both are very hardworking people, but also very committed to Christ and His church. And we are very grateful, and they're elders of different congregations within our church cluster. And we're very thankful for their lives and their families. So we'll straight jump to the question. As Robin said, there has been some challenges. So maybe if you can share, because the first wave was, again, very new compared to second wave. So if you can just go through the journey, in a sense, what were the changes you experienced in the first wave and then the second wave? And again, positive, negative, what do you see will continue? So maybe Robin, you can start, and then we can go to Balsop.
So I can talk about it in two ways. Whether you want to talk about in the work perspective or in the life perspective, right? So
both,
right? So in the work perspective, I will start with that, right? It was an uncharted territory, right? So it was something which was coming, something which was huge, a huge tidal wave which was going to sweep us all, and so we had to act in advance, right? So what we did was, it was in March last year, we were seeing this happening in China. Because we are a global company, so we knew what was happening in the other place. Our China office was already impacted. So we started, one of the things that we had a choice to do is we started it early, right? We allowed people, we shut down our office about 10 days before the country shut down. And that was great in hindsight because it allowed people to get back to their homes and so many other places. Somebody were traveling and opportunity to come back and stuff like that. So it was interesting, but there was so much of fear, right? There was a lot of fear and unknown fear of what's going to happen, right? So two things that we experienced, right? I'm talking about one, the work front, right? Because this fear was unknown, people who are familiar with what's exactly happening in the company were comfortable. They knew you're all solid states. But people who were in the distant, right, who are working in offshore, right, in terms of people who are working in different states and cities, they don't know exactly what's happening, right? So we could see a sense of fear that, whether the jobs are going to remain, it's going to go, what's going to happen, this is going to change. So what it did was it created a lot of actions and reactions with people, which we actually had to combat at the later stage, right? So that's one of the aspects. And with families, again, it was great. In the sense it's first time you're staying home for a long time. The family was happy, but huge adjustment, right? Earlier, it was office. You're working in office. Now you come home. You're bringing work to home. And now the home is a home, right? So the understanding that we are bringing work to a home and not home to our office, right? That means we have to adjust with the family, not family to adjust with us. Huge shift. But that was a transition which had to work out, right? But by God's grace, as we moved forward, there was a better understanding. So there is so much I can talk about. I'll leave it here for the next question. I'll move on to Swapnil.
Okay, yeah. So something very similar to Robin. The first thing, good part was, we got a lot of time with family. First wave, obviously, we all were shocked. And as I looked around and as I thought over this, initially there was a fear of death. Nobody knew what's going to happen, and everybody was scared of death, and there was death around the corner. And slowly people figured out, okay, it's not that bad. And then slowly that fear shifted from death, the fear of death, to fear of losing job or a fear of losing income. And I've seen, I work in small office, but I have good relations with my colleagues. So I could clearly see the people who were looking at work as a means to an end, like I'm working to get money so that I can get a bigger house, or I can get a bigger car, or I have this dream. Suddenly they felt that, okay, this bridge on which this vehicle or this channel which is going to help me to reach that destination is shaking. And I could clearly see that people were in panic. They were just worried that what if company downsizes and if I lose a job. And interestingly, none of these people are from that migrant category workers, that they would die of hunger. No, it was just fear of losing luxuries. कि मैं बड़ी गाड़ी नहीं ले पाऊंगा, जो बड़ा घर है वो लेने का सपना है वो नहीं ले पाऊंगा. So it's not that they will lose their house. They could easily find another job. But all these people who had that ambition, they could see that, okay, this is shaking and I will not be able to get that. And to me personally, I could see that in all that uncertainty, even for my job. My job is actually in strategy and business development, which is more futuristic. So we work for things which will bring returns in next 5 years. So nothing for today. So every year we keep on going 5 years ahead. These 20 में हम 25 का plan बनाते, 21 में हम 26 का बनाते, 22 में हम 27 का बनाते. So I was always looking ahead. And suddenly, when this happened, everybody stopped looking at future and they started looking at today, आज or अभी क्या है. And then people started talking, okay, where do we cut cost, because your sales are not happening, income कम हो गया है, variable cost थोड़ा बहुत कम हो जाता है, but fixed cost is remaining same. Now, how do we reduce that fixed cost? So I could see there's tremendous uncertainty, fear in people's lives, but I was very comfortable because I knew that my goal was not to get that bigger house or bigger car or bigger something like. So my ambition is something different, and that is very important for all the believers to understand why we are working. What is the motivation for what we are working? If work is only a means to an end, like बस पैसा कमाना है ताकि हम मजे कर सके या कुछ और कर सके, then obviously such uncertainties which come in our life can cause havoc. People go in depression. I'm sure you guys had that first session, mental health, and it has affected so many people. So yeah, that has affected, and by the grace of God, whatever studies I'm doing, that has really helped me to anchor my foot on that solid foundation. That okay, I can lose job, but nothing happens to my identity. My motivation remains same. Probably I'll have to compromise somewhere else, but that does not mean that it's all gone. yeah, so that has been my experience.
Thank you. So I would just want to pick on what both of you shared. Fear is fear in the company, either loss of life, yeah, loss of job or pay. And obviously, both of you, like Robin, for you making decisions not just for yourself, but the whole company. And also, I think, how do you, for Brother Swapnil, in the midst of fear, so you changed plans to rather than thinking about tomorrow, you start thinking about today, which is good. So, can you just share a little more? How did you manage fear and your own fear and your company's fears, people's fears? And how did you find strength from Jesus or Bible or the church? Yeah.
A couple of things, right? One is this was a great time for us to respond to people, right? How do we respond? And how do we show our responsibility towards people? And I would also show that how do we show our reliability towards people? Now, this is very, very critical because there are certain things that you can let go of, right? The first way particularly, we have about 70 to 80 people who are working through third-party sources. And the easiest thing was for us at this point of time, we knew that for the next 7-8 months or a year, we are not going to be people cannot go into the market and work. So we let go of them, right? Fine. But we didn't do that. So that was a call to take. And that was it's a lot of money involved, right? So we said we will not take that call. Now that was a call to say that we care, right? Especially in a time like that. It meant that we find ways to connect with them and to help them to connect it with the customers and stuff like that. Now, the fear that happened came out in multiple ways, right? One, people shut down, or somebody to cover their fear, they became overtly active. In terms of also the ability to trust people, right? You talked about trust. I think it's a major, major hurdle which came in terms of COVID-related work situation. Because now, unlike in an IT company, you probably can see on the screen what they're doing in companies like us, where we are, it's more like an FMCG case of selling. You don't know what they're doing, right? So you have to trust that they're doing. You only see how do you measure their outcomes. Now, people reacted in two different ways. One of the ways was you start over-engaging with people, or under-engaging. That you would have meetings back after back after back after back. You're reporting, you have multiple reportings in this crazy meetings. Now, this also affected mental health of people, right? They had no time to work. They had to be on a meeting. Now the bosses want to show that they are actually knowing what's happening. They have put meetings. There's more meetings. So these are things, it's an outcome, right? The real issue was trust. The real issue was fear. So we had to get our leadership together. We had to say that this is the issue, right? And then what we did was we engaged outside third parties resources to help people battle psychological issues. Why we connected, we had issues. We had issues come up with people who were suicidal and many things like that. So we had to address it, and we had to show love and care and compassion. One of the things I'll tell you, it's very simple, that when you're in your own space, you don't realize what people need. We found out that we just asked people. We were connecting and saying what's happening, how is it happening. We had to show genuine care and love. See, what you say with your words, which everybody says all the time, really had no impact. How do you demonstrate your love? How do you demonstrate your care, right? We allowed people to take extended time off. We saw what was the issues. We provided material things for people who are really struggling with those things, right? To work, to enable them to work. And one of the things that we did, you have to realize that when the phase started going over and before the second phase came, a lot of companies were full-fledged back into the market. We had a call to take. We said, we're not going to do that, right? What happened was a lot of people who had actually gone into the market felt sick, and that some of them lost their lives. And we never, by God's grace, our decision not to go actually helped save a lot of lives. So here was truly to say that, about costs and about our response to people, how are we able to show genuine care and love to people? But that does not come easy. It's a cost to pay, right? Are we willing to take a price to pay, for how you show your love and empathy to people? And that was one major aspect. and how do we come across and respond. We had people who came across people to actually offer support, love. We formed a team like what we did in our church, which was coming around people to show their love and care. We went out of the way to show love and care. So the outcome, we have a very, very strong, engaged team, right? They're super happy. But I'm sure there are misses as well, right? It's all the good things, but there are misses as well, right? The big miss was, you're all talking virtually. People don't feel that connect, and which was a major barrier to the point that a lot of new people could never connect, right? So I'll leave at that and go to Swapnil.
Yeah, so like Robin, I'm not in a decision-making position where it can influence others' lives, but in a position where I am, since last October, I started going to office with an intention just to help other colleagues, even though we don't work officially, but just because we are sitting next to each other, we always get an opportunity to talk to them. And I found that it was a very good opportunity to counsel these people who had a different view of work and what Pastor Gladwin mentioned. And so before that also I had few interaction with these people, and this was a very good opportunity where people were wondering what is happening in this world. ये कितना बढ़ेगा, कितना serious हो जाएगा, कितने लोग मरेंगे, what if I lose my job, what is my bare minimum cost of living, कितने में मुझे job करनी चाहिए. So when people were in that kind of a existential crisis, it was a good opportunity to tell them that there is a reality. And I found that very, very interesting, and people were more open, बात करने के लिए, सुनने के लिए. It was good opportunity to explain to them कि मैं क्यों काम कर रहा हूँ. मैं पैसा, okay, money we are getting it, but as Pastor Gladwin also mentioned, we are working because God has designed us for work, and there are challenges, difficulties, but there is a sense of satisfaction when we do it for the glory of God. So boss को दिखाने के लिए नहीं कर रहे. और जब हम remote working में shift हो गए, it was all work from home. There was no boss around. So you never know what you are doing, and in that situation, you are doing your job well. You are doing it with perfection. You are showing up every meeting before time, with camera on. So it clearly gives signals to people that okay, people are still engaged. This guy is engaged. He's working. His work ethics has not gone down. Dar nahi hai, which was there in other people's mind, and yeah. So that's how I've exhibited or helped or counseled people in these difficult times.
Thank you both of you. I could again learn that you have trying to answer the question how you can be helpful and what you could do to help others. I'll keep it open for the floor now. We have a mixed bag. We have people who have startups, some their own business, some are freelance, and some are working and in a mixed industry. So maybe I'll just leave it open for everyone to ask questions. Just share your name and please ask a question that you want to ask. Thank you.
See, one thing I can just share, which has helped me a lot during this time of COVID, is that, where does your comfort come from, right? Because there's so many things that could change, the uncertainties that could come, right? Because it looks stable now, but everything changes in 6 months. Now we are in a phase where everything looks fine, all getting back to normal, but nobody knows what's going to come next, right? How do you prepare for it? Right. So the best answer is you actually can't prepare for it. Right. I like when we talked about work. Where do you find your identity? If you start finding your identity in your job, in what you have, in how how you're seen by the people, like how you're addressed and all those things, then it's a big challenge, right? Because you will face uncertainty. I think this whole process, one of the things I spent my time on is to understand, God, what do you have for me? Right? The sense is like, the role that I do, the work, the place, my, thing is that where my strength lies on? Because the big realization was all this can be gone in a very short time. I think for me, that was a big realization, particularly during the time of COVID, that this reliability will not work. It doesn't matter where you are in the organization, what kind of work you do, as long as you're right with God, as long as you find your comfort in Christ, that things will keep moving and it'll changing, right? This is a phase which has come, and you can never prepare for any phase. Like, sometimes we tend to plan our life, right? इतने साल में ये हो जाना चाहिए, मेरा काम ऐसे हो जाना चाहिए, मुझे ये 5 साल में मेरा घर हो जाना चाहिए, मेरे 2 बच्चे हो जाना चाहिए, 4 गाड़ियां होनी चाहिए. Like, this is what the mindset we have, right? And this is all, I'm not only telling you all, it's me as well, right? But ये COVID ने हमें सिखाया, for me personally, all these are, illusion. आज है, कल क्या है हमें पता नहीं है, right? We cannot plan for things. Only thing that we can plan for is how am I right before God, and how I'm finding my comfort in God, my identity, whatever happens tomorrow, that can I find the strength in Christ? I think, it might sound like a very theoretical word, but I tell you there's a lot of truth in it when we go through that phase. I'm sure a lot of you have gone through some tough situations. That your strength is there, right? ठीक है, क्या होगा? Worst come worst, I lose my job, I might lose the place that I live. It really doesn't matter at the end of the day, as long as you're secure in Christ. So the identity, I went back to the message which Pastor Arvind gave a long time back about where you find your identity. I read those things. And I said, where do you find that? And I really spent time on that. To say that, okay, this is not my identity. Because the moment we say our job, our place, our home, our work is an identity, then you are in serious trouble. How do you project? मेरे पास ये नौकरी नहीं है, तो हम कैसे, how will I introduce myself? So I thought that was a very important learning for me personally during this time of COVID. Where do I put my strength on? Right. And as far as the family is concerned, I said, I'll take every day as it comes, enjoy the time with family as I get it. But tomorrow, if it changes, it's fine, right? You work along with it. But, finally, are we able to use our time effectively? That was one learning for me.
While others still gather courage, boldness to ask questions, let me just add up. Robin talked about identity. Let me also throw in the meaning and purpose. If you want to have a meaning or purpose in your work, then we need to put our work in God's story. And God's story from Genesis to Revelation is about creation, fall, redemption, and restoration. And if you find your story, a work story, into that redemption and restoration process, you will be able to work joyfully and meaningfully, because you know that you are partnering with God in a restoration process. And I wish I'd known this long back in my career, because half or about 3/4 of my career, I was just working for something else. That okay, like the work is a curse. Now I realize work is not a curse. Curse has come on work, curse has come on ground, that has made work difficult, but God still values that work. So the presentation which I make, it's glorifying God. So I have to make it beautiful, that as if I'm going to make that presentation to God. The Excel sheet I'm going to make, that I'm going to present to God. So it has to be properly aligned, well said, everything. If something is not there and theek hai, chalta hai, it's okay, somebody's going to check it, baad mein dekhne wala hai, they can correct it, then that shows that I have that divided mindset, what Pastor Gladwin talked about, sacred and secular. कि church में सब कुछ perfect होना चाहिए, and काम में ठीक है चलता है, it's okay. ये इधर इतना important नहीं है. Once we merge this, integrate this, both the divides, sacred and secular, and we see our workplace also as equally valuable as church. And I hope this does not sound controversial, but for workers, our workplace is our primary worship place, more than church, because in church we spend maybe 2 hours in a week, and in workplace we spend 60 hours, 80 hours in a week. So I've studied this. You are spiritually being formed in work, because it's very easy to एक नकाब पहन के चर्च में 2 घंटा, anyone can put up a show. But when you are working 8 hours, 10 hours, and if you do a calculation, you spend more time with your colleagues than you spend with your wife and kids on weekdays. So they get to see you. They get to see you when you get angry, why you get angry, what kind of language you use, and everything. It just shows Christ in our Christian name. So yeah, that's a great place to exhibit fruit of spirit. It's a great place to have a testimony from a boss or a worker that yes, this guy is different. And that can only happen when you understand the full story of God. What is God doing in this world, and where do you fit in that story? And when I say that specifically, I talk about your work story. Whatever you are doing, God values the work has inherent purpose, and that is also another problem. A lot of people see work has instrumental value. कि चलो पैसा कमाने का, and then we give it to others to help others, or to give it to ministry, give it to church, and work just becomes a channel. And that's not how God sees us. God sees that work what we are doing, it has inherent value. The way we work is actually helping this world to get a better place, and that restoration process which Jesus began is continuing through us. So we are partnering in that. So if you see a value and meaning and purpose of work from that perspective, from God's perspective, I think it can completely transform the way we do work.
Thank you, Brother Robin and Swapnil. Any questions? Anyone?
I have a question. Oh. Hilda, go ahead. It's okay.
During COVID, especially when it's work from home, it became very common that the work gets extended. So in my workplace previously, it so happened that people would set up meeting at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night, because there is no foundation that the work ends at this time. So I think so it is like more common for like people who do work from home. So how do we, like people who are juniors, like in the lower level, we say no, or how do we do it in that case?
Good question, Hilda. But I think it's a difficult answer for where you are in the level of organization, right? So if you're in the leadership, you can set yourself as an example, right? So we had the same issue that came up, because the line got blurred between work and home. So as leaders, we had to set example about saying that, I don't want any calls after 6:37 unless it is emergency, and I won't call anybody after 6:37. We want set meetings, and it was a discipline that we had to do. How do you respect space? Because one of the things that we did a survey and found out was that people were getting mentally affected because of this extension. They were always kind of work. I'm not sure if it was how productive it was when people were working so long, but they were feeling, even if there was a call after, say, nothing between 6 to 8 and 8:30, they have a call, they felt they were working the whole day, right? So it's a tough call. I don't know, if you ask me exactly how a person in the first layer could go and tell, no, I'm not going to work. It's a little difficult one to feel that. To say that, no, I'm not going to take your calls after 8:30, right? That's probably how the job demands it. But subtly coming across, saying that these are some of the issues that could potentially come, how, explaining, probably that's the only way. But if you're in leadership, at any level of leadership, need not be the top level, even if you're in the mid-level of leadership, I would say you have to set an example that I won't do this with my team, right? And then you could, possibly bring it up to your manager as well, saying that, look, I'm getting all my work done in this time, and I would like to respect their time, and put that across to your boss and say how productive they are, demonstrate it, something like that, right? So it's not an easy answer, but what we did was we made this ground rule in the organization that we will not engage with people unless it's an emergency beyond the working hours. So it worked for us, but it took 3 months for us to get used to that. Otherwise, the lines were getting completely blurred. But if you don't do that from the top, it's always a little challenge.
Yeah, one practical suggestion to Hilda. I don't know if you use calendars and Outlook meetings and everything. I have realized the same problem, and what I've done is I've started putting church meetings, home groups, Bible studies into my calendar, and started blocking that calendar at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So people see that, okay, this guy is occupied. Yeah, so that has helped to me to some extent, because earlier we were not doing it. Once you're out of office at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, we knew that, okay, we cannot have a meeting now. And with all that flexibility and the boundaries getting blurred, I think blocking a calendar has been helpful to me.
Hila took my question, but it's okay. I'll ask another one. So my question is that sometimes, of course, like we have this trust issue. I mean, the bosses have a trust issue whether the employees are working or not. And thank you for bringing that up, because it's really like it was visible even in my organization. And so there's a lot of micromanagement that begins to happen, like, you know, getting calls every hour or so asking like, what are you doing now, or give me a report of this and stuff. And a lot of the colleagues that I spoke to, not just in my organization but other like teaching organizations, basically we heard that there were meetings happening any hour of the day, and regardless of whether the person was available or not, and then they were highlighted for not being available in the meeting and not being present in the meeting. And of course that was demotivating for many people. So how do we balance that, or how do we tackle with that when you are when you've expressed your inavailability, but regardless you are mentioned as a defaulter, or you're not respected for the space, or you know, the like, it's as good as taking a leave. Like, you've asked for a leave, and you have taken a leave, but regardless of it being approved, you are still highlighted for your inavailability.
So, Cheryl, very good question, right? So this is very pertinent to the times that we live in right now, right? I want to take the first one first, which is very, very important, because that has an answer to the second one about trust, right? Trust is a two-way process, right? I believe that, you know, especially when you're looking from outside and seeing what people are going to be doing, what they're doing, there are certain jobs which are very clearly measurable. There are certain jobs which are not, right? So now the onus is not necessarily on the manager to understand that he's working. Sometimes you also have to come across, because this is a difficult times, right? In terms of the visibility of what you're doing is not clearly there. So the person also should have the onus to go and reflect, discuss that this is what I have done. Many times that's not happening. You're working, you assume that the person knows you're working, and you expect him to trust. It's a little difficult thing, right? It will not work in that same sequence every time. So if you can put your work in a measurable form, in whatever form, in a structure, and enable people to know that this is what you've been doing, right? It helps mitigate a lot of issues. Because otherwise, when you're not hearing from a particular employee, he's doing a lot of work. The assumption is, oh, क्या कर रहा है? घर पे तो बैठा है, कुछ काम कर रहा है, नहीं कर रहा है, क्या हो रहा है? He is doing it, but he is not communicating. So many times we expect the communication to only flow from top to bottom, but it also needs to be the other way around, right? So that is important. If you do that, what happens is it helps build trust, right? Now the question about, you know, wanting to push something for meeting later, it's all an issue of trust. I can tell you that a lot of these things comes from trust, because you want to engage with that employee, right? You also want to be engaged. So you say that, okay, ठीक है, मैं ये meeting लगाता हूँ, I want him to share. उसको वो information आना उसके नीचे से share meeting करता है. Now, if you are able to proactively share, many times this is mitigated, right? There is no perfect solution that you will overcome it. But I would say that communicating from your end to up is a big factor. Second thing, I would also, you know, find ways to connect, right? Apart from just your performance related connection, to say that, you know, hey, you know, connecting off and saying that this is what is happening with you, and sharing. That has helped. See, these are some of the things that we faced, you know, teams, because we have people who are working not in the office, also outside. How do you connect, especially in times like this? So we created metrics and you know, measures where we are able to help people put in what they are doing on a daily basis, so that there is a connection which is going on. Can you do something like that? You know, that might help mitigate it to a point. But at the end of the day, it'll largely depend on your supervisor or something, you know, what kind of level of trust that he can actually have, right? So you can do some things to mitigate that, But if you are someone where you have people working with you, then I would say trust, right? Help them. You can now what you're trying to do is help them create that list and say what they are doing and share on a periodic basis so that you can develop trust and trust people. I'm not sure if it answers fully, but
Yes, it does.
Any last question before we go to the song? Okay, Srijan has a question. Yep, Srijan, please.
Yeah, sorry. So I was just wondering, how do you manage your work and your church life divide, basically? Like, considering nowadays people find themselves working longer hours and the work is slightly more intense, right? Like they're compensating for a smaller workforce. So how do you, and like churches are closed, I mean, yeah, churches are closed, and uh, sorry, and meeting people is slightly limited. So how do you stay grounded in your faith, basically?
fellowship and connection is super important, right? Sujan, fantastic question, right? How do you balance that? Now, there are flexible things that you can do, and there are not flexible things that you don't do, right? So particularly in work, there are certain things that are not flexible. But in the church, the beautiful advantage is highly flexible, right? You can find the spot and do it. I would say there are two things, right? Intention and action. First is, do you really intend to connect, or you're trying to find a reason? Right? Many times it comes to that. But some of the jobs, there are not all jobs, but some of the jobs which are really tight extents for very long hours, you really can't find time, right? There you are helpless, but that's only an exception. But most of the jobs, you can actually find time. Nobody can say I'm working like 14 hours a day, 6 days a week, except for very few jobs. It's not like that. And that is a myth. Because if you're saying that I have 14 hours that I'm available to work, your work will extend to 14 hours, right? If you say that I'm only available for 10 hours, you will finish your work in 10 hours, right? Now, finding that space to connect. What I do, I can share something. I connect over a cup of coffee. I said, look, I don't want to meet in a large group, so I meet people over a cup of coffee, right? I meet and spend some just an hour. I don't want that also to extend for too long, so I spend an hour, and then I put these slots like what Swapnil was mentioning. Can you put that in your calendar as that is one of your work, right? Like your work, this also is my work, which I want to do. Work is not pain. Work is not hard. You enjoy your work as well. Then it starts fitting in well, right? So finding the time and being flexible with your church, and also not saying that I have 18 hours of stretchable time every day to work my office work, right? You say that I have this many hours is what I have. I want to complete everything through that. It generally happens. If you stretch it, it will stretch.
Yeah, first, can I just take 2 minutes? Okay. So my 2 cents into this region. First thing is we need to integrate this Monday to Friday work and Sunday church, this kind of mindset, because a lot of us struggle with this, that Monday to Saturday I work and Sunday I do church activities. And that causes what the Pastor Gladwin talked about, the sacred and secular divide. So we need to see that when we go to a work on Monday, tomorrow I'm going to go to work, I'm going to start work at 9:30 morning. I'm going to start worshiping God with my work. Here we are worshiping with songs and preaching and listening from the word of God. There I would be worshiping through what Adam did, Bagwani and Dekhbal karke, zameen ko, to work at it and to cultivate it. So that was Adam doing on Monday, and that's what we will do tomorrow. So we will continue to worship God on Mondays. So I think once we get that thing in mind, we live a very cohesive, coherent life, and then we will be able to balance both things. Both, we don't have to keep it completely separate. They need to get integrated. There are different priorities. There are things interconnected into that, but we need to get that, that kind of a view in our mind, that my Monday work is also worship of God. And that I would do from Monday to Saturday, Friday, 5 days or 6 weeks, 6 days. And then Sunday is only for 2 hours.
Yeah, Thank you, Brother Swapnil and Brother Robin. It is so helpful. Like within our church, we have so much wisdom from people who are working for so many years, plus being active in church and following Christ. And I can assure you, if you still have questions or you want career counseling, or they are more than happy to even chat. Robin would prefer a coffee. We can ask Brother Swapnil if he wants to have a chai, and I'm pretty sure you can contact them, and you can ask me, and we can connect, get you guys connected. But let's go to our last song now. Again, thank you very much. And all this will be online. You can share it with your friends. I was just learning. Maybe I'm having trust. That's why I asked you guys to put your videos on, because maybe I'm having some trust issue with all. ये church attend कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे? So let's go to our last song, and then we'll go to a time of prayer and close after.